Welcome to the Tucson Bitcoin podcast. Today my guest is Lucy Cifferello from Start9 Labs. She's a developer over there and helps create privacy-focused applications integrated on a operating system built on top of a Raspberry Pi. So pretty much what that means is you buy this piece of hardware for a very inexpensive price, and you get easy install of all these privacy-focused apps. So like if you want to run a password manager and self-host it instead of paying for somebody else to do it, or if you want to back up your files or run a Bitcoin node and a Lightning node, you can use the Start9 Embassy, and I got mine. I'm a big fan of it. It's really easy. I've been using encrypted messaging services on it and testing out some of the features, and it's just the easiest thing that I have come across in regards to more privacy-focused stuff, because in reality our hardware is not very private. Our cell phones are pretty much just data tracking lines for these large companies. All the apps we use just consume so much data on us, and it's really time to take that back and to say that we're going to take our privacy into our own hands. And that's Start9's vision, and it gets me really excited to see that there's a company out there that's so focused on this and making it so easy for the average consumer. But yeah, they're a new company, and they have a huge, ambitious roadmap ahead of them. But yeah, in this conversation, we talk about why privacy is important and why Start9 Labs is doing what they're doing. And it was really fun. And I hope you enjoy this conversation. Cool. We're recording. Really excited to have you on, Lucy. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, super happy to be here. Thank you for the invite.
So I stumbled across Start9 like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and somebody, an acquaintance, was telling me about Cups as an encrypted messaging service, and I was like, how do I do this? And I was searching and found Start9, and I was reading a little bit about your guys' mission. It immediately bought your super powered Raspberry Pi
Cool.
with the Embassy OS, and I've been playing around with it, and it's kind of fun to play around with the features. I haven't gone too deep into it yet, but I love the mission of the company. So yeah, you mind explaining a little bit about what Start9's about?
Absolutely. I'm glad we got you hooked on that impression. Yeah, we're basically out to enforce self-sovereignty and particularly privacy through creating a platform for open source technologies to run self-hosted applications for every individual. And now there's a lot packaged into that statement, right? Like a question might be like, what's open source? And I'm happy to dive into those things in more detail. But yeah, we're basically trying to be an enabler for sovereign technology.
Yeah, one of the things they talk a lot about in computer science is around security. The more secure and private you get, the more inconvenient it gets. And so for things like the Embassy, where you can just install things with one click and get it rolling really quickly without having to get into a command line, I think it's really exciting for non-technical people, for sure.
Yeah, that's a little bit of the origin story of this company in general. Is we're a team of developers, first and foremost, engineers, and the founders were trying to set up a Lightning node, and everyone's pretty savvy and diving into it. It was hard. It was not something that was just very straightforward. There was a lot of configuration. There were a lot of dependencies. You had to have Bitcoin running and particular permissions there. And this was a multi-day project for a very tech-savvy individual, right? Team of individuals, actually. And our CEO Matt was like, why is this difficult? It shouldn't be this hard. How adoption's never going to happen if it's it requires this level of expertise and time to use this technology, right? And Lightning's amazing. It's going to be transformative for the Bitcoin space, and it already is. And so the team started iterating, like, okay, what can we do to make this easier, right? And lo and behold, we birthed the embassy, right? And realized that it was more capable than just Bitcoin and blockchain technologies, right? There is actually a whole ecosystem of applications that could be run on a personal server like this that has never been done before.
Yeah, I mean, it is really kind of fascinating. Look at all the different services that you can plug in, and I definitely can testify to how difficult it used to be to run a Lightning node. I think in 2019, I spent about 60 hours trying to set one up on my little Raspberry Pi, and
Yeah, that sounds about right.
yeah, and I failed. It was a lot of time on GitHub and typing in a command line, and loading different OSs. I tried Raspberry Blitz. I tried it through Ubuntu. I tried it all sorts of different ways, and couldn't do it. But like today, it's really easy to run it. With products like Umbrel and MyNode, and now with Start9. I haven't tried it yet because I am already running too many nodes, but I only have so much bandwidth at my house. But yeah,
Yeah, we've basically gone through that painful process and optimized it in a way that works really easily with a one-click install. You're guided through, a really straightforward wizard, something that many people are very familiar with installing software, and it's there, it's running for you, right? You can easily connect it to a wallet and just use it within minutes, right? Which is incredible.
yeah. Yeah, so I saw on your bio on the website, says you have a background in psychology. What got you more into the world of development?
Yeah. For a long time, I was going down a path of pursuing a PhD. I was working as a therapist, and um, in practice, that world just ended up not being for me. I saw myself really struggling. I'm a very empathetic person, and I um, pour a lot into what I do, and it became very apparent that it was very, very draining for me, and it was not something that actually in practice came the most easily for me. Now, I'm not one to shy away from a challenge by any means, but I just saw how my mind worked and how I wasn't sure if this was the best route for me to really make a difference in the world. Um, I did a little bit of soul searching in the days that I realized this, and I had several miscellaneous jobs, and I was actually working at Nordstrom at the time. And I met a developer, a woman who I helped. She was like, "Listen, I don't know anything about fashion. I have this event I have to go to," and we just got to talking. And I was helping her pick out this awesome dress, and she started telling me about the startup she worked for and what she does, and I was just immediately intrigued. I was like, just had never really been exposed to this space before. Um, I always did really well in math and science, and I actually remembering back to computer science class in as just a requirement in college, and it was so easy for me. I was like, oh, this, why are people struggling with this, um, so I started playing around, and I just got hooked. I loved the process of thinking through coding and developing something. It's really suited for how my mind works. And yeah, I love just solving problems and making things easier for people and beautiful at that. Uh, and yeah, a couple of years and working different developer jobs, I stumbled upon the same team that I'm working on now, and yeah, we've been a group of people who've been working together for a couple of years, and it's awesome. I absolutely love what I do.
Yeah, so pretty much you got fed up with being a therapist and learned to code.
Yeah, I guess I like to be in my own headspace a bit. Um, just like going deep on something and solving a problem individually is something that works really well for me. As a hobby, I also do ceramics. So again, that's something that's just very, one stream of mine that's very individual. Works well for me.
Nice. Yeah, I have a background in social work, and I spent about 7 years doing that and hit a brick wall eventually.
It's
What
demanding.
Yeah, I mean, what was problematic for me was not like working with hurting people, but dealing with all the problems of the industry itself.
Yeah.
And just like seeing how the insurance model is kind of
Oh
dehumanizing
yeah.
people, and um, it was like, the work is great and rewarding. It feels good to sit down with people in painful places and kind of walk through and help them. But man, the fiat disease, what was my major turning point was reading the Bitcoin standard and seeing how everything is tied to the way that money works. And it just blew my mind. It's like we can actually solve a lot of these issues if we get Bitcoin into people's hands, or get sound money, Bitcoin being
Yeah.
the best option.
Absolutely. Retrospectively, for me, there's a lot of pieces of this bubbling back then too, and I didn't really have a way to put it right until I kind of got more involved in this space and saw uh, what these technologies could really enable for people. Like like you kind of said, it's not so much being like I wasn't necessarily fed up with being a therapist. It was a bit bigger than that, right? I didn't feel like my contribution was like as effective as it could be, and it just didn't necessarily align with yeah, I guess kind of how I was thinking about things at the time, right? Sorry, mental tangent there.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult work because it's kind of like you're working in an emotional emergency room almost, and like a lot of the issues take years and years to build up to, for these people to be willing to come and fix them. Where um, that was my struggle, at least, is like it feels like we're not actually addressing societal issues.
Yes, totally. There's
And
there's a more systemic problem.
mhm. Yeah. So, one of the, are you familiar with, I'm assuming you are, but are you familiar with the Cypherpunks manifesto?
I'm familiar. I haven't read it.
It's a really, really great piece. And when people, the average person doesn't really understand the importance of privacy, or really understand how much data they leak, and just like basic things like carrying their phone around with them or swiping a debit card. Um, but the very first paragraph, it says privacy is necessary for an open society in an electronic age. Uh, Privacy is not secrecy. Um, and I think that's a really good distinguishment, and because the difference between secrecy and privacy. How do you think that privacy is and what the work that Start9 is doing is important for a free and open society today?
Yeah, something that we're really trying to focus on is privacy as the default, right? It's there is a choice to participate, right? And just giving people that choice in the matter, I think, is very important, right? And privacy is kind of packaged into this whole notion of being uh, sovereign in general, right? And we're basically trying to sell digital sovereignty here. Um, and yeah, it's this derivative of sovereignty, right? It's not the whole picture of it, but it is an essential piece of uh, basically having your freedom, right? Of having the choice to participate in the manner that you want to, and to have your data um, be not just permissioned like it is right now with many applications that you might use, or even your entire Apple or Google phone, whatever you might have. It's really an inalienable right to your self sovereignty. Um, go back to the initial question that you asked. I think I tangented slightly there as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. Just why is privacy so necessary for a free and open society today?
Yeah. It's necessary because it's really this a fundamental human right, in my opinion, and in Start9's mission as well. It's there's this interesting play of trust right now in our society, right, where we're trusting third parties to handle things, to handle our data, to make it more convenient for us, right? They're providing a service. And with that service comes a sacrifice. And what we're sacrificing is our privacy, right? Now, that's fine. And that's been a necessary step in the evolution of technological progress, right? But it's not going to persist. Um, and the reason that it's not going to, and this very much ties into the notion of why our society is moving to more decentralized model in general, right? With giving up your privacy, you're sacrificing um, a sense of security in a way, right? Um, you're giving power to these central organizations in a way that they can use and manipulate it to suit their own needs, their own economic needs. Um, and that's not necessarily in the best interest of their users and people in general, right? So to have a more free and open society, this centralized model of things generally needs to be broken down. And that can come in many different forms, from money to even communities as we know it.
Yeah, I mean it's really important. I mean we have things like rule of law and due process in our country, being a real fundamental part of why we've been able to enjoy so much prosperity is because people can't just go into your home and take you and throw you into prison because they don't like what you're doing or saying. It these inconveniences for authorities should be as inconvenient as possible to make it as difficult for them to um, arbitrarily like just take people out. And there's kind of a major erosion of that right now, of the importance of due process with just the mob mentality. I see it on Twitter a lot where people will go and just absolutely attack somebody based on um, maybe something that's misunderstood. It happened in Tucson to a small coffee shop where um, the county didn't like them for some reason, so they put a picture of them as being an uncompliant business on their wall, and that picture got leaked. And then next thing you know, all the employees are getting death threats, directed at them and their
Oh,
kids.
wow.
And yeah, it's pretty scary to see that, just the way. But the importance of due process and rule of law, of people being innocent until proven guilty, and the government, um, well, they already do it, but not mass surveilling us and breaching those things is kind of important,
Yes.
because what always happens is the minority gets attacked. And taken out, whichever is the minority at the
Yeah.
time.
Oftentimes because they're a convenient scapegoat, right? For the bigger purpose of infusing fear and maintaining the current power structures, right? Um, which it's difficult to be disruptive of, but incredibly important.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I find amazing about Bitcoin is it's not about waiting around for the government to do the right thing. It's about taking power into your own hands and supporting your own self-sovereignty. Because
Yes.
pretty like for the average person, like they just don't have the ability to do that with fiat money. Um, and it's really difficult with different technologies. Like I was listening to, are you familiar with NVK from CoinKite?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was listening to him talk about privacy issues on smartphones, and it's like impossible to have privacy on your smartphone. And he
Yeah,
was,
unless and root it, install something like Graphene OS, and you basically just give up a lot of convenience, right? It is possible, but at an inconvenience. We're definitely on a mission to kind of meld those two things together, right? We see a long future ahead of us where we're hopeful that we can both create software and technology that is entirely sovereign, but in a way that doesn't sacrifice that convenience right now. There's a lot of difficulties to overcome there, right? But yeah, sounds like a fun challenge.
yeah, it's super interesting. So what are some good ways that individuals can start protecting their privacy a little bit better?
Yeah, using something like for things that you care about, say, like photos is a good example, right? Um, Something that's really personal, um, could even be considered like sacred to an individual in some ways. It's not really something that you want splattered across the internet or stored on some random corporation server somewhere, right? It's a very intimate thing. Um, Using a self-hosted cloud-like service such as file browser is something that enables you to keep a backup of your pictures so you have them in your personal possession, um, and you could keep them for all time, right? It gives you that sense of privacy. Like, this is something that, yeah, it's my private life. I don't think that I need to have that data distributed across the world unless I want it to. And again, there's coming back to that choice, right? You should be Each individual should be enabled to have the option to interact in the internet in a private manner with every piece of technology that's out there, right? From email to cloud services um, to messaging to social media, right? Like, there is an equivalent for just about everything out there that you can do in a self-hosted or federated way, right? Um, it's funny. It goes back to almost like a very primal way of doing primal. Back in the day, when you used to want to communicate to someone, you would go meet them in person and have a conversation, right? And with the influx of technological advancement that we've made, like, communication has become this instantaneous thing that you can do across distances, right? But it could be at the sacrifice of your privacy, like, emails through Google at this point. Like, they have a record of every single message that was sent there, right? Um, so having a secure messaging way, like we prototyped cups for this purpose, or if you want to have kind of like a one-time message that you send to someone, right? Like, kind of like how Snapchat did it, but in a more photo-based or written form. You could do something like they call it a paste bin service, where you basically have a one-time link to view something. We literally called this burn after reading. Is a service that we made ourselves, where you can send someone a one-time message and it burns after they read it, right? Which is pretty cool. We're kind of like getting back to this basic way of communicating, but enabled through technology, which is so cool to me, right? Um, and I really see the future of individual privacy is taking taking these applications, taking the advancements that we've made as humanity, and bringing them back to the individual.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those are awesome services that a lot of people have sensitive pictures that they don't want leaked out everywhere. And so to self-host it, that definitely makes sense. Or just having alternatives from monopoly cloud services is huge. Like I was looking at Nextcloud,
Yeah,
which seemed like a um, pretty cool service for sure. Um, and it's not terribly difficult to implement yourself too, which is, I mean, I think that's probably the biggest roadblock for normal people to be interested in these things is they're worried about convenience above all else.
yeah, yeah. It's not easy to, even if a GitHub repository makes it really straightforward to run something yourself, even just getting to and navigating that website in general requires a level of domain knowledge, right? Now there's people that are adventurous, and I immensely respect that. Um, but that shouldn't be the default, right? This being able to participate in a private and self-sovereign way shouldn't be difficult. And right now it is to a large degree, um, until technologies like the embassy become mainstream.
Yeah, yeah. I think. When did you guys launch as a company?
It was the fall of 2019.
Nice,
Yep. So not that
nice.
long.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what the reception is at all of these conferences coming up. I think it's going to get a lot more popular here pretty soon.
Yeah, it's
Because,
gonna be fun.
I mean, people want this stuff. Like, I talk to people all the time that, ask me questions about running Bitcoin nodes. And just having, I mean, this is typically what they want is like something that you can just press a button with. I mean,
Yeah.
it's super easy right now with um, loading on an operating system onto an SD card and plug it into your Raspberry Pi. But um, even for some people, it needs to be a little bit easier than that. Um,
There's
and
like a couple different tiers, right? And we're
yeah,
working through them.
yeah, but I mean, it's exciting too because it's really opening the door for a whole new market of people that might not have been able to do this before.
Yeah, and I think that education is a huge piece of this too, right? Like that's awesome that people are just asking you about running a Bitcoin node. I feel like that just shows that there's an understanding of the importance in contributing to the network as a whole, right? Which maybe wasn't a mentality even a couple of years ago, right? Like I feel like there's this fundamental shift going on in society where we're realizing that this centralization of data, of power is ultimately going to lead to its demise, right? Like we have to take this back, in an individual way for survival, right? For individual survival, and I think as as a society, right? Um, yeah,
I was in a group and we are talking about how there's pretty much no institution today that is widely trusted. Um, and we were trying to come up with three, and it was really, really difficult to do that. And I think part of it is because there's an imbalance of power. Like when you give people tons of power over you, the chance of it being abused is raised quite a bit versus like having some sort of self sovereignty. Uh, People have a lot less power on you, and you have a lot less trust to give the counterparty for sure. Um, which is a really interesting relationship. And I explain this to people a lot, like how the relationship with the world changes when they have savings in Bitcoin, when they're able to hold their own keys. um, and how it's not like, I mean, people are surprised to learn that the money in the bank isn't really theirs. It's just an IOU that can be taken from them at any moment, or restricted. Um, and I mean, it's pretty incredible, for sure. So why do you think people should be running their own nodes?
Yeah, well, like I mentioned, it's important to participate in the network, and the reason for that is so that the network could be more secure. You know, the more people that are running nodes that are validating transactions, A, the more redundancy there is, B, there's just more validation um, occurring across the network space. Um, for you individually, it's important because if you're running a fully validating node, it means that you know for sure what the ledger of transactions is, right? Like at any point in time, you could prove what has gone on out there. And I don't know, that makes me feel nice inside, right? That like I know what the state of the Bitcoin network is. Like that's pretty cool. I can't say that about certain governments, right? I can't even say that about my own bank account. I don't know where that money has actually been gone, right? Um, been going to. And so there is a sense of like security almost there, in knowing that, cool, I can double check this stuff um, by running code that I set up myself. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge thing. You essentially become your own central bank, and you have full
Yeah,
control, which is hugely different. I mean, the average person, is like surprised when I tell them that buying Bitcoin on Robinhood is not a good idea. Um, because the whole point of Bitcoin is not to like invest in like a stock and just watch it go up. The point of it is to be able to like bypass all of these different institutions and cut the middlemen out. Um, yeah, I mean, one of the most exciting things I think is in Bitcoin is BTC Pay Server, and the way that changes things for uh, uh, merchants accepting Bitcoin, where they go from using a payment processor in a bank, and, all of these other services that they place trust in, to being able to just accept it themselves. And it's pretty incredible for
yeah,
sure.
they've built an amazing piece of technology. It's something that we use internally, and is something that we're launching on the embassy very soon. Um, it's probably one of my favorite pieces of tech out there. It's just incredibly powerful, so easy to use, and just the amount of customization and integration that you can do with it is it's really changed the space, right? You could set that up, host it yourself, create an invoice for anyone to pay you with, um, and receive Bitcoin or Lightning payments instantly. It's incredible. Um, yeah, and this is something that could easily be set up for mom and pop shops too, right? They don't have to worry about even setting up, a complicated wallet infrastructure. Like a lot of this just gets taken care of for them. They just have their wallet, they have their private key, and they're good to go. Now, this is an important piece that kind of comes back to maybe the one caveat of privacy, right? And digital sovereignty in general is you have to remember your password. For Bitcoin, you have to remember your seed. That is the one piece of responsibility that you are eternally responsible for. Um, and yeah, I guess that's just the one caveat to decentralization, even in general, too, right? For everything to work, you have to participate in that thing.
Yeah. American Hodl was describing using Bitcoin as like learning how to drive. And it's like really intimidating at first. So you practice, like, when you start driving, you're not going to go out on the highway right away. You would start driving in a parking lot, and then, eventually go on the street, and you probably go during times when there's not as much traffic. and work your way up. And I think that's good with Bitcoin, and it's like, if you can like keep track of your car keys, then you can keep track of your private keys.
That's
Um,
great.
and yeah, it definitely is practice. It's a huge paradigm shift for a lot of people that rely on the convenience of trusting other parties for sure. But it is very doable for the average person, 100%.
Yeah.
Um,
I like that term paradigm shift, and you're totally right. It's absolutely doable. And I forever encourage people to go down the rabbit hole. Start reading, start asking questions, and reaching out to resources like your podcast to gather more information and to learn about not only this space but all of those nooks and crannies within society that might not be immediately apparent, or uh, might not be immediately apparent as a lot of things just kind of have a band-aid on top of them, right? Have you ever lifted it up and looked at the scab that's healing under there? um, Sometimes it's full of pus and you got to do something about
mhm.
it. Sorry for the gross example, but yeah.
No, it's a great example. Like our entire society has been putting band-aids on bullet wounds for a long time, and it's not working very well. It's pretty gross if you look underneath at the way things are happening.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great things about Bitcoin is it's for many, like, I wouldn't have been thinking about privacy a whole lot. I mean, it's something I was like a little bit concerned about, like putting um, stickers on my webcams, and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It, you're,
Oh,
you're,
that's a good one. I do that.
yeah, you're, uh, if you go and watch anything with Edward Snowden, your view on technology might change a little bit. Um, but but yeah, Bitcoin is one of those things that it forces people to address a lot of assumptions that they've made and might not
Yeah.
know that they made. You know,
A
to
lot of
understand.
assumptions, and to start asking questions like, wait, how is this really working?
Yeah, it's a lot of people don't really think to even ask those questions or know the right questions. It's really funny um, sitting on Clubhouse and hearing new people come into the rooms and ask questions about, like, what happens if there's a solar flare or a nuclear war? Will the Bitcoin network be gone? And there, or like, focusing on the FUD that the mainstream media directs
Mm-hmm.
at Bitcoin, that is just not very well thought out or well researched, and it is definitely exposing the assumptions that people have and don't realize they have about things. Like, who goes into a bank account, goes to open a bank up account and asks what happens to them if a solar flare comes through or an EMP blows up.
Well, that's
Like,
another good reason for running your own node too. Is say that does happen, you already have the entire history. You know what's there. It doesn't get destroyed. You know that unless your house gets blown up, your physical copy of it does get destroyed. Yes, but again, there's redundancy throughout the network. That's the cool thing. It's not just sitting on one server somewhere for someone to A, manipulate, or B, to delete.
yeah, that's why you back up your private keys in a secure way. Um,
Yes,
you
also
have a
that.
you have a physical copy on it, because even if like an EMP comes through and destroys your node or destroys your wallet or your phone or wherever you have it stored, you'll have a physical copy of your private keys to back it up and start using it again once the infrastructure gets back. But you know,
And it will come back because it's indestructible.
yeah, the logical thing to do in that standpoint is to make sure that you have water and guns. Like,
Yep, water guns and your private key.
yeah, and your private private keys on steel plates or however you do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said you guys are working on BTC Pay server. Is there anything else in the works coming soon?
Yeah, we're working on a big operating system upgrade in general that's going to enable so much more. Particularly, it's going to enable external hard drive support, which just gives us a whole world of new possibilities that for more resource intensive operations services that require additional backup space, like other blockchains that are privacy focused, more substantial uh, cloud backup services as well. Um, we have a pretty ambitious roadmap that's on our website too, of all the things that we're hopeful to implement. It's kind of hard to say a specific timeline for things, because as we start working on them, things come out that we realize need to kind of happen in the operating system first. Um, oh, a big uh, thing for us is getting Matrix on the embassy. That's something we're super stoked about. And it's highly dependent on um, one of the implementations called Conduit. I actually just read today that they got funded, so they're hoping to get that project fleshed out, ready for production use, I think within 6 months, which is amazing. We can't wait to put that on the embassy. Matrix is basically a self-hosted um, communication platform, like Telegram, like Slack. It does all the things, it has every feature you can imagine, and it's awesome. We use it internally for our internal communications, and I love it. I think it's really fun. They have a really cool way of verifying your sessions to make sure that it is indeed you talking to that other person, and between your different devices as well. Hope everyone can check that out when it's launched.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, we're seeing a need for that, and some people are like really gung ho, like Jimmy Song, who has their he has his PGP key on his Twitter bio, which is necessary because there's so many scammers. I had a Jimmy Song
Oh
scammer
yeah.
chatting with me on Twitter, and I was kind of trolling him because he was asking which altcoins I trade, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is not Jimmy Song," um,
Oh yeah.
and I told him about that, and it was pretty funny. But it it yeah, no, the need to verify who you're speaking with and communicating with virtually is really important. Just like
Yeah,
basic stuff like websites. There's all sorts of like URL spoofing and stuff like that.
yeah, for sure. I think it's going to become increasingly more important too. And again, like it's a pretty highly technical thing to do at this point. So I really enjoy the way that Matrix did it. They made it really fun. Um, and yeah, I hope that there continues to be education around these pieces too, right? PGP keys, right? Like, what does that even mean? For a lot of people, that's like a foreign language. Um, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. It is kind of difficult to get into, but yeah, I mean the roadmap does look pretty ambitious.
Thank
I,
you.
I didn't find it the last time, but yeah, you've got Nextcloud on there, which I'm excited for sure.
Yeah, same.
I mean,
Nextcloud, Pi-hole would be pretty cool too. It's actually something that I have set up on my home network. Just haven't integrated into the Pi infrastructure yet, but it works great. It's particularly nice for my mobile device, just not to have ads pop up as frequently. It's really cool.
yeah, I need that 100%. I I don't know. I use Brave browser and uBlock, um, which is great and all, but I need to take it up a notch. It'd be nice not to get all the stupid ads on my Apple TV. It drives me
uh,
insane.
yeah,
But yeah,
I think that would totally work. I don't have an Apple TV, but I would imagine, yeah, it's network wide. It's home network wide, yeah.
yeah, it's the amazing things you can do with Raspberry Pis. That's like a whole. I am kicking myself because when I was taking a class at the local community college like 5 years ago, and one of the it was a biology class, and one of the teachers was trying to convinced me to join the STEM class to play around with Raspberry
Mm.
Pis, and I missed a great opportunity to um, learn about the stuff that I'm now just learning. So it's
I think everyone has a history of missed opportunities there, and it's usually on the second time around that you get hooked, right? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have that Bitcoin story where they're like, oh yeah, I heard about that, but I didn't do anything about it then, or you feel like you missed the boat a little bit, but it's never too late. There's always a point, a starting point, and I don't care if you're 17 years old or 87 years old. It's not too late.
yeah. So, like, maybe for somebody that's younger listening to the podcast, you went through the journey of becoming a developer. What would be some suggestions you'd give for people that are looking to go into that space?
Yeah, try it out. There's a lot of fun coding apps or courses online, like through Code Academy or Scratch Labs is really fun one that's a little bit more interactive. Just kind of getting your feet wet and seeing what it's like to work through the logic that's involved with development. Um, I actually went through a coding boot camp school that kind of propelled me into this space. And if this is something that really intrigues your interest, if you feel like it's fun and engaging and mentally stimulating, I would highly recommend either, yeah, if you're post college or even not considering going to a 4-year college, consider a code school. It's a great kind of on ramp to get into the space and have an awesome network of resources too, and like-minded people that can kind of help you transition into a career. Um, yeah, I think that's been a great piece too, as I've met so many fascinating people in the technology space, and I wouldn't trade that for the world.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more interesting groups of people, and what's awesome about it too is just the online presence and
Yeah, yeah, you have
connect.
you have a global network. You have a whole community of people that you can engage with, and I'm not gonna lie, it's definitely challenging. It's hard, and being able to have a place where you can go and ask questions like Stack Overflow, or even just channels online like Slack channels or Telegram channels or Matrix channels um, of community members. Like, don't be hesitant to ask questions. I mean, I've asked a million questions. I still ask questions every single day. There's never a stupid question, and it's only in the pursuit of gaining more knowledge, right? So just don't be afraid, just do it.
I want to correct you there. There are stupid questions like what will happen if to the Bitcoin network if there's an EMP or solar flare. I'm so tired of that.
All right,
Or
that's
should I buy
valid.
Dogecoin? I'm so tired of that one too. No, you should
I
not
meant
buy
in well, I meant
Dogecoin.
in the pursuit of intellectual knowledge.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's I mean, it's a really humbling experience to enter into something. I think it's something that people struggle with is like entering into a field where they know nothing about and feeling
Yeah,
like they
yeah,
have,
well said.
yeah,
It's
it's,
humbling. It's challenging. It's scary. There's a lot of imposter syndrome, but man, do I feel capable and yeah, just uh, for me, it's engaging, right? Like I absolutely love just working through problems and manipulating technology to make it easier for people to interact with it and with the world, right? Like that is inspiring to me on a daily basis, and um, yeah, I love that I actually have the tools in my toolkit now to be able to build and create that future for the world.
yeah. Yeah, the user interface people are some of the best people in the world that are um, make it a little bit easier for the average person.
Absolutely, they have a hard job, but it's an incredible skill to be able to think through the design process like that.
Yeah. 100%. Where are some good places that people can follow your work?
Yeah, so you can check us out on Twitter, Start9 Labs. That's probably our main source of connection. We also have a Telegram channel, and obviously a Matrix channel too. You can find all that information on our website. All the way at the bottom, there's a community section. It gives you the links to join our Telegram, Matrix, and follow us on Twitter.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on.
Hell yeah, it's been absolutely awesome chatting with you.
Big thank you to Lucy for coming on. That was a really fun conversation, just diving into the importance of self-sovereignty and privacy. Privacy is a pillar of a free and open society, as it says in the Cypherpunk Manifesto, which is a must-read. If you haven't read it, I think it's a great background. It was written in 1992, and it pretty much predicts everything that we're experiencing today. And if we take our privacy into our own hands, just in the same way that we take money back into our own hands, it really protects the individual, and it pushes back against the surveillance security state that we see ourselves in today. And it's just super, super important. And Start9 is breaking down the barriers that makes it difficult for normal individuals to do these things, because, realistically, it's just so time consuming and inconvenient to be practicing privacy oriented practices. It's just like everything else. It's a rigged game where the difficulty to get ahead and to protect yourself is just so difficult. And that's why I love this company and I love their vision, and I hope you go check them out. But yeah, make sure to get to your local Bitcoin meetup. We have them going in Tucson and Phoenix. If you're somewhere else in the country, feel free to reach out to me if you need help getting connected with Bitcoiners in your area. I've got a great network of people all over the country that are really trying to educate people and get them tools to be a little bit more independent and self-sovereign. And it's really, really exciting because we're seeing real changes. Like, people's lives are being changed by Bitcoin right now. And if you don't think that's true, then go watch my last interview with Mike Peterson from Bitcoin Beach, down where a small town in El Salvador has just been radically changed by using Bitcoin as their kind of default currency. And it's just so exciting. But yeah, thanks for watching this. Hope you have a good one.